And welcome, everybody, to another episode of Talkin Ball Live with Pat Leonard, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, August 15th, 2024. On the eve, essentially, of Giants Texans in Houston. I will be there at NRG Stadium. Can't wait for that. Can't wait to watch Daniel Jones, Danny Dimes, Janiel Dones, the bearded wonder of New York, whatever you want to call him right now. The Giants starters are going to be on the field. One of the things I want to talk about, though, is whether one of their most key starters should be, and that is Malik Nabers, their number 6 overall pick, explosive wide receiver, who's going to be one of the focal points of this offense for Brian Daboll in 2024, and a pivotal year for this offense and for this team. I stood there and watched here at practice on Thursday as Malik Nabers encouragingly participated fully in a practice that was essentially a dress rehearsal for the Giants going into a game where, listen, they're playing the Jets in a joint scrimmage and in their final preseason game a couple weeks out from their regular season opener on September 8th against the Minnesota Vikings. But this game in Houston is important because what it is Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen putting probably the closest thing we're going to see in the preseason on the field. They want to see what they have. They want their team not only to be evaluated and for themselves to, plug holes where they need to, who's healthy, who's not, how can they reinforce the roster, who's going to win position battles, what happens every training camp. But there's pressure right now on the Giants to go into this season, guns blazing, so to speak. Minnesota, Washington, weeks 1 and 2, a lot of pressure on the front office, on the head coach, and on this team to hit the ground running. And so it's understandable for Brian Daboll, for Joe Schoen, for the Giants to want Malik Nabers on the field, for Malik Nabers to continue to push to try to be on the field. And it's encouraging and great that a guy who looked like his left foot injury could have been much worse, and then we find out it's an ankle sprain, that he's back out there on the field with his team, preparing as if he's going to be a part of the starting 11 on offense when they get down to Houston. But I can't help but think in the back of my mind that Malik Nabers told us directly the whole priority from here till then on September 8th is to get him healthy for that game, to not risk that he's not going to be healthy for that game, to rehab that ankle, to continue to do work on it, which requires rest as well, and to make sure that he's ready for the games that count. And I know the Giants want to be ready. I know they want to see Daniel Jones and Malik Nabers play together in the preseason. And let's face it, you don't necessarily want, obviously, an ideal world, the first time in a game that Malik Nabers catches a pass from Daniel Jones in a real game, in an NFL game, preseason or regular season. You don't want to be the first time to be week 1 in a year where it's make or break, right? You do want to get that under your belt. But isn't it smarter to be safe right now? Isn't it smarter to continue maybe to practice Malik but not play him in this game? I think I would be wary. I would be biting my fingernails if I was a Giants fan or anybody affiliated with the Giants if I were putting him on the field in this game. And of course, you need guys to play football. You need people to prepare by playing football, but you also need to calculate how important a player is to your bottom line. And I feel like Malik Nabers is that. So I want to kick you off with that. Of course, we already see Tuto roaring in with the super chat. Remember, you can purchase a super chat or super sticker, elevate your comment or question to the top of the thread, as Tuto did just here. Tuto says, massive salutes and respects to Big Boss Pat, the king of the New York Giants football organization. Great words there from Tuto. I'm flattered. And all diehard fans across the pond. And please slap all Stinky Boyd's losers, including Saquon. He always kicks us off right. Setting a good example there with a $5 super chat. Thank you so much there, Tuto. Going to tell you about our sponsors, and then we're going to get right into your questions. Excited for this Talkin Ball Live. And honestly, this has been a great week. We had Benny Fowler, Super Bowl 50 champion, on the podcast already. That episode is up. And today, prior to coming on here with you, recorded an episode with Giants wide receiver Allen Robinson II. And that will be dropping on Friday as I fly to Houston. So I think you'll enjoy that as well. Talking Ball with Pat Leonard is brought to you by the Boom Chaga Mushroom Super Drink, a natural extract loaded with anti-inflammatory, immune-boosting antioxidants, and heart-healthy compounds right here over my shoulder. You can easily pour this natural liquid supplement into any of your favorite drinks. I put mine in my coffee every morning and immediately feel the difference. I personally have felt a post-workout-like energy boost with Boom. Chaga also has the ability to lower cholesterol, reduce inflammation, and improve immune and heart health with its beta-glucans and antioxidants. Go to boomchaga.com today to place your first order. And if you use the discount code TalkinBall25 or access it through the QR code on your screen here, you will get 25% off your first subscribe and save order. Right now, that means a month's supply costs you only $30. Start feeling the difference today at boomchaga.com. So that's boomchaga.com. Go to subscribe and save, order once with Talkin Ball 25. You'll get that huge discount and you can just cancel it out. You don't have to stay subscribed. No binding contract there whatsoever. Just try the product. I know you'll love it. We're also brought to you by Estate 98 Coffee, and an all-natural specialty coffee with no sugar that is convenient for on-the-go professionals and parents. It takes me less than 10 seconds to make a delicious Estate 98 coffee on ice and only a minute more to make a hot coffee or latte from this all-natural concentrate. Go to estate98.com/talkinball to get a special buy one, get one free deal. So estate98.com/talkinball, and you will get a special buy one, get one free deal. Also brought to you by BetOnline, the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. From the preseason NFL to college kicking off, BetOnline has every stat, matchup, and even live odds and spreads while the games are being played. Think you know your stuff? Get in on our winner-take-all $300,000 NFL Survivor pool for the upcoming season. When the game is over, head on over to our online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker, or unwind with one of our over 150 slot games. Head to the website today and use the promo code BELIEVE and get in on the action. Bet online. The game starts here. If you're listening on audio on Apple or Spotify, as I'm flying to Houston on Friday, thank you so much for tuning in. If you're watching right now, you're watching me take a sip of an old fashioned, which is much needed during a long month, a long week, but a fun one as the Giants ramp up. Delicious. Screwball, if you're watching, I told you it's time to sponsor the podcast. Boom Chaga's on board. Estate 98's on board. BetOnline's on board. Let's go. What are you waiting for? Giants Chronicle says play Nabers. If he's good enough to go, he should go. We definitely want to see Nabers on the field for sure. I think everybody associated with the NFL, with this game, with the Giants, you want to see him on the field. He is an exciting player. You want to see what it looks like. Just saying, I did not like watching him there on the field today as he takes a jet sweep off the edge on the right side. And when he gets to the end of the jet sweep and he opens up, it was the hardest I've seen him run during the practice. He stops and he kind of shakes his head and he puts his head down and he starts grabbing the back of his right thigh like he was in some discomfort. Now he walked back behind the huddle and then eventually a song came on. He starts dancing around a little bit and he did finish the practice. But when I saw that moment, I just thought, as encouraging as it is that he's out here, that scared me. I just didn't like seeing that, but it's possible it was a cramp and not tightness in a muscle, right? It doesn't mean it was anything serious, but as I reported, watching him grab that, it just makes you kind of hesitate and think again. Chronicles also pays $5 on another super chat. Thank you, Chronicles. He says, wide receiver depth chart predictions. Is Allen Robinson making it? What do you think about a waiver claim corner at cutdown day? Is Tyler Nubin looking better? I like the team's attitude. The attitude was good in that first game against the Lions, and in that week against the Lions, they looked tough. That was encouraging. Wide receiver depth chart. I think Allen Robinson, A-Rob, as you call him, that is what people call him. I do think he should make it. He can play inside and outside. He's learned both. As you'll find out in this interview, he spent the spring working in the slot in Daboll's offense and now the outside during the summer. And so he's really kind of not only learned the offense and the versatility of it, he's proven he has that versatility in the past, and he's worked on it here, time on task with the Giants. He hasn't seen a ton of run with the first teamers, but I think there's a possibility we come out of this game in Houston with people talking a little bit more about Allen Robinson than they have. He had a strong joint practice against the Detroit Lions. He had a great practice, his best practice probably of the camp. I think it was this past Tuesday, Tommy DeVito and he connecting on several completions. So right now the depth chart is, of course, the top four: Nabers, Slayton, Robinson, Hyatt. And to me, Allen Robinson belongs on the roster. You also have like a guy like Gunnar Olszewski. There's Isaiah McKenzie. Those are guys who can return it. Somebody said that Gunnar Olszewski walked off the practice field today. I did not see what happened to Gunnar there. So not exactly sure what went down there, but he's a guy that they have really valued. And of course, those two players, essentially, you have to think are vying for one spot. Miles Boykin, a valuable gunner. Don't necessarily think he steals a spot from a quote unquote receiver, though, on offense. Hodgins is kind of the player in the mix there that becomes the question mark. I think Robinson has outperformed Isaiah, but also Isaiah has proven to have some chemistry with Daniel Jones, and also to be a guy who they've been able to count on when they ask him to. That said, I just can't get out of my head. Last year, they basically benched him in a lot of ways. And I like Hodgins a lot, but I felt like last year they showed that even though he was a guy they brought in and he should be one of their success stories, I question how much commitment there is to keeping him on the roster. We will see. He's a popular teammate, popular guy in the locker room. It's not like they dislike him, but does he get sidled out? Does he remain on the team? I mean, I do think he's a really good red zone threat. And I think, the Giants really definitely have to find a way to score touchdowns. So hard to cut guys who know how to get in the end zone. That's for sure. Your other question was, what do you think about a waiver claim corner on cut down day? Yeah. Listen, the quote I keep coming back to, and I still haven't ended up writing that story for the Daily News because so many things keep happening. But Shane Bowen, so far, I thought had one of the quotes of the summer when he said a couple weeks ago, he said, we claimed a corner a week ago. We claimed a corner yesterday, and we'll probably be signing another one in October. He said that's just the kind of season it might end up being. So I think that answers your question there. Tyler Nubin is looking better. Shane Bowen said it's good to have him on the field. Bowen clearly doesn't have time for guys who aren't available. That's what I've gathered from his comments about Nubin. It's basically like, get on the field, kid, is what it has boiled down to. Today in practice, they showed all different combinations of safeties with their first team. So they showed Pinnock Belton. They showed Belton Nubin. And did they show Pinnock Nubin? Let me see. Yes, they did. So they showed all three of those combos. I think that's a reflection of what we've told you, which is that this is, I think, eventually going to end up being Tyler Nubin's job, and the competition is going to ramp up as we go. So thank you, Chronicles, for paying in there. Tuto says, much love and respect to all my fam and to build Big Pat, G-Men, Shelton, D-Kit, Joey, Giants Chronicles, Luann, and salutes to the rest of the viewers as well. Tuto, you're always bringing the love and the energy. We really appreciate you. Thank you so much. Barbara, what's going on? She says, I would only play Nabers when Daniel Jones, Danny Dimes, as she says, is in. Oh, I definitely think he would only play with Jones in this game, especially, there's no lock in this game. So it's going to be Jones and DeVito. So yeah, no, totally. He would play with Daniel Jones if he plays at all. Let's see. If Daniel Jones cuts the beard, we riot. I agree, Chronicles. He says, Pat, what have you heard from sources on how they feel about the secondary, and will they add someone there? What have you heard about playing them for the starters on Saturday? Yeah, so the secondary to me looks like Deonte Banks and Nick McLeod on the outside. Cordell Flott's obviously injured. I still thought that was going to be McLeod's job anyway. But it's McLeod and Banks on the outside. I told you the safety rotation. And it looks like David Long Jr. getting a crack in the slot with Drew Phillips injured, and also Isaiah Simmons factoring in there as well. Micah McFadden and Bobby Okereke. Of course, Okereke, the top linebacker, McFadden right next to him. Deontay Johnson, unfortunately injured, so should be out as well. And then, of course, the front four, you have Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence. I believe 94, Elijah Chapman is going to get the start. If it's not him, it would be Ryder Anderson or Rakeem Nunez-Roches. Chapman has been taking a lot of first-team reps, though, and been first man up lately. And, of course, Kayvon Thibodeau. So that's what your defense is looking like going into this game. All right, let's see. D-Kit says Nabers should absolutely play. Get him out there. All of them should play at least a half. At least a half. Oh, that's interesting. That would be fascinating to see. D-Kit has purchased a $10 super chat. Not surprised. One of our biggest supporters. Hey, D-Kit, I saw you post something on Twitter saying something like I was starting to toe the line. What did you mean about that? I wasn't exactly sure what comment you were referring to, but hey, I hope I'm not a toe the line guy in your eyes, man. So please clarify. Thank you so much for the support. He says, Josh Kelly is a decent running back, Pat. How and where does he fit in? Because he can play. Also, it seems like we are going with defensive tackle by committee next to Dexter. Also, any updates on John Michael Schmitz, the center? Yeah, so Josh Kelly, you're right. He's an NFL player. He can be a short yardage guy. He has been in the past at times for the Chargers. Not that he's like an overly, big running back, but he can run inside. And he's here because of Tyrone Tracy's injury. Now, obviously, I put the update on YouTube Shorts about Tracy's injury. I'm sure you guys saw by now. I put it on Twitter. But of course, it turns out miraculously, it was not as serious as it initially looked. He has a sprained ankle. Now, I still think he's out long-term, though, or not long-term. That's the wrong word. I still think he's out a little bit of time here. I still think Tyrone Tracy Jr., his injury, it reflects on how long maybe he's not going to be available. The fact that they went and signed a real veteran running back like Josh Kelly, in my eyes, former LA Charger, 4 years with the Chargers, actually. So, it's great that it's only a right ankle sprain for Tracy. I will say, now listen, like I said, great thing that it's not a huge fracture, compound fracture, what it looked like when we first saw it. But, even from a recovery standpoint, especially for running backs, they're planning and cutting, like a bad ankle sprain, low or high, a bad ankle sprain can be worse sometimes than just, coming off of a clean break. Like clean breaks take longer, obviously, to heal. The bone has to heal. But I've had both, like fractures and sprains. And if you don't take care of a bad sprain, it can linger worse than just a break where your bone breaks, you put it in a cast, it heals, and then, you strengthen it up and you're back to normal kind of deal. So that's just something to watch. But obviously, it was super encouraging to see Tracy, the rookie running back, on the field. He wasn't practicing, but he was, stutter stepping through the ladder. He was doing some cutting and running on the side with trainers. So that was more than anybody expected, obviously. Let's see. Defensive tackle by committee next to Dexter Lawrence. Yeah, not only next to, but also behind, right? I mean, Shane Bowen today mentioning Azeez Ojulari as an interior guy. So first of all, I think what he meant by that was in like a NASCAR package. I think he was talking about if we're not getting, and also not just NASCAR package, but any type of pass rush need on the inside. If they don't feel like guys other than Dexter Lawrence are getting to the quarterback and pushing the interior of the pocket, I think what Shane Bowen's alluding to there is if we need better pass rush there, can Azeez do it, right? I do think even though it's a battle and it's a competition, I'm concerned about that position. It's encouraging. Elijah Chapman is showing them a lot. They're giving Ryder Anderson a lot of opportunity. Jordan Riley's in the mix, DJ Davidson, right? Obviously there's Nacho, et cetera. But I do think you're going to spend a lot of this season wanting more out of that spot, maybe even more in the run game than in the, in the pass rush game, so that's how I feel about that. Listen, the Leonard Williams trade and what they were able to get, when you dumping assets to get draft picks, when you're a team that's out of it, like that all is sensible, makes sense from a business process standpoint, right? For sure. You just have to try to make sure in those moments, based on the timeline of where your organization is, that you have solutions in those spots. I think defensive tackle was a position along with offensive line where a lot of fans were looking for maybe a draft pick to be added there. Chapman looks like the guy they're hoping can be that guy for them, the undrafted rookie. And then John Michael Schmitz, he practiced all day today. Looks like he's going to play, at least based on practice. I mean, we'll see if that's actually going to happen, but we saw one first-string offensive line all practice today. Andrew Thomas, left tackle, Aaron Stinney, left guard, John Michael Schmitz, center, Greg Van Roten, right guard, and Jermaine Illuminor, right tackle. That is what we saw from the first team. And John Runyon Jr. has a shoulder. Didn't really do much on the side, have to be honest. D-Kit, thanks as always for the super chat. Really appreciate you. All right, let's get to our next comment here. And it comes from D-Kit again. Pat, it seems like Alex Johnson might have a chance to make this roster. Yeah, D-Kit, I'm skeptical of that. I mean, he's made some plays. Not that he doesn't deserve to be on the team, but I'm not sure based on the depth chart. I mean, you have at safety, you have those top three, right? And then after Pinnock, Newbin and Belton. Right now, you're right. Right now, they're second string. Johnson would be the next man up because you have Elijah Riley, who was playing well, who now goes on injured reserve. Jalen Mills, who's been released. Of course, we'll go over the moves that the Giants made today as well, but we already talked about Josh Kelly, Jalen Mills released, and then Jordan Phillips, defensive tackle, probably should have brought him up in Gabe's question there, Chronicles, but Jordan Phillips traded to Dallas Cowboys for a conditional. It's Phillips and a conditional 7th for a Cowboys conditional 6th, but it's possible the draft picks never end up being exchanged because he has to be on the roster for 2 games this regular season with Dallas for that to kick in. Didn't seem like he came into camp in shape, was not playing well. So skeptical whether or not he's really going to stick in Dallas. Giants, I think it was, what was it, $430,000 or something in the $400K range in guaranteed money that they gave Phillips. Of course, and if they end up doing the pick swap, they're essentially buying a 6th round pick or a move up to a 6th round for that amount. Alex Johnson looks like he can play D-Kit for sure. I'm just, how many safeties are they keeping? That's really what would matter there. I mean, they need guys who can play corner. They need capable corners more than they need safeties with those 3 in the back there. Now, not that they don't need help at safety also, but I'm just saying he doesn't profile to play for them at the moment in the way their defense is constructed. So we'll see about that. He's definitely one of those young guys who is encouraging. And, my guess is that ideally, the rookie from UCLA would be a guy that they could stash on the practice squad. G-Man says, good evening, Pat. You said on the last Talkin Ball you did not anticipate JMS or Evan Neal playing in the preseason game. Has that stance changed at all over the last couple of days? Today, Evan Neal was practicing as the second team right tackle, and Schmitz was practicing as the first team center. The first time they practiced the other day, they were both taking like 2 snaps and coming out. That was on Tuesday. Today, on Thursday, it wasn't as hard of a practice, but they did do a lot and they did more on the field. Evan Neal actually, by the way, got chippy with Dexter Lawrence and Brian Burns on a block today on 1 rep later in the practice. It was very interesting. Neal showing a chip on his shoulder, getting a little feisty. You like to see that from a guy playing for his Giants career, essentially, as many others are. They practiced today, G-Men, like they might play in this game. I would say, if I had to guess this exact moment, I would say JMS plays and Neal does not. But that's just based on watching Neal kind of take some snaps, then step out. Schmitz seemed like he did more today. So we'll see about that. But that's my guess at the moment. Also, do you anticipate having the defensive starters, including Dexter Lawrence, Burns, and Thibodeau? Yes, I do. Another sip of the old fashioned. Cheers to all of you Talkin Ballers. Antonio, let's rattle through these. Any update on John Runyon Jr.? Looks like, I don't think he's going to play in this game. Looks like a guy who would either be ready for the Jets, like later in the week, Jets week, right? Or, I don't think it's, he's out there. He's doing some pushing. Really, the way that he was prepping today was the way that John Michael Schmitz has been prepping with Frank Pirano, one of the strength coaches. So to me, doesn't seem like alarm bells for regular season. Maybe he comes back for Jets. How long do I expect the starters to play? Usually it's more of like they want to see an amount of plays run and a snap count rather than like time in the game on the clock. So somebody said earlier they want to see a full half. I mean, I would love to watch a full half of the starters. I don't know if the Giants are going to play them that much. I will say this. It was an intense day today because let me put it this way. Today, the Giants had a lot of guys who weren't practicing and are injured, dressed in their uniforms, standing on the field doing, either some work on the side or hanging out with the rest of the team as if they were practicing. It was almost like, and this didn't happen. I'm not reporting this. I'm just saying it was almost like Brian Daboll had a meeting and said, if you can walk and breathe, you're putting your uniform on and coming out there because we are getting ready for this season. And this game is our best chance at getting everybody on the first team ready for that. Like it had that feel to it, like Drew Phillips, Tyrone Tracy, Deontay Johnson. Deontay Johnson was outside riding a bike with the boot on his left foot. Tyree Jackson, by the way, who's supposed to be their emergency third quarterback, his back was acting up the other day. He got hurt diving for a catch from Tommy DeVito on a really low pass, like in a jog through today. And Jackson was pissed. Something was hurting him in his either upper back leg or lower back. He slammed his helmet down on the ground, left practice. So that you don't want to see that. Kind of makes it more interesting about what would actually happen if the Giants need a third quarterback in this game. Hopefully they don't. Daboll kind of was a little more iffy and wishy-washy on whether Locke could actually help there. We will see. Again, don't think you should be putting Drew Lock in a game like this. And if you do, he really can't throw the ball. He's in pain throwing the ball. So the defense knows you're running it. But Antonio, I guess a half is possible. I tell that story to say this. A half is possible from the starters based on how they were practicing today, based on how they were practicing here on Thursday, based on the amount of the intensity level that they were showing and that their behavior and that the personnel usage and the way that guys were behaving out there looked. I could see that happening. I still guess, my guess is that you see, this is a guess. My guess is you see around a quarter, a little bit more, do you see 2 or 3 series from the first team offense, something like that, depending on how long the series go. That's what I would say. Let's see. Fourth safety at the moment would, I guess the fourth safety technically is Alex Johnson. They had Sutherland, the new guy working there at one point with the second team. So we'll see about that. Schlottman looks like the backup center at this point, but you also have Van Roten and Runyon Jr. on the roster, and they've even had Kubis snapping, guys who show that they can do that. So to be honest, Antonio, I think Kubis is a guy that's going to make the team. They don't want to lose him. He's a guy that if you try to pass him through waivers, someone's going to grab. So does Jake Kubis mean that Austin Schlottman doesn't make the team, right? Or does Schlottman and Kubis make the team behind your front five, and then you only are having one more player, like essentially Evan Neal? So your only 3 backups are those guys. I think that would be tough because you also have Aaron Stinney. If you're healthy right now, it's Thomas, Runyon Jr., John Michael Schmitz, Greg Van Roten, and Jermaine Illuminor left to right. And then you think there's Stinney, Kubis, Neal, right? So you're keeping 8 offensive linemen. That's the question there to me. I think it's possible it's JMS and then the guards who have center flex, but we will see about that. That's just my take right now. Let's see if any of these questions have been answered. I'll skip them. Let's see. Adoree Jackson, haven't heard his name mentioned at all. Cordell Flott and Drew Phillips, neither of them look close from their behavior out on the field. For example, Tyrone Tracy Jr., who looked like he didn't have a right ankle after that practice, was out on the ladders and doing cuts and doing some jogs and a little bit of sprinting here and there on the side today. Cordell Flott, more kind of not gingerly is not the word, but just more casual, like longer term looking work on the backfield. Drew Phillips as well involved in that. Guys who, I would say both of them at this point look like the priority would be more like getting them to the regular season than next week. And really, it's kind of hush hush on Phillips, but I haven't seen him do anything. I mean, seeing him on the field today, just standing there, it was like, oh yeah, there's Drew. So disappointing. Obviously, he was having a really good camp, but I would say both of them kind of wait and see. Definitely dealing with things that are keeping him out a little bit here. OG, what's going on? Always great to see you. Yes, Houston is playing their starters. This is going to be the Giants starters playing against one of the up and coming and, arguably in some people's minds, one of the better teams in the league right now. And Houston really is loaded right now, talent-wise. So this will be a good test and it'll be fun to watch. Giants will start 3-0, Luann says, and keep it moving. I love it, Luann, always the optimist. Antonio says, does the week 1 O-line look like this with Stinney, Neal, and Schlottman as backups? And so yeah, we just talked over that. But to me, I don't think you're cutting Jake Kubas. Like I said, I don't think you're cutting Jake Kubas. All right, another sip of the old fashioned there. Delicious. Barbara thinks Nabers can go for a few plays. They say it's an ankle sprain. I think he just got stepped on. No, Barbara, he actually did not get stepped on. It was kind of a non-contact twist of the ankle. It did initially look like the type of thing where he got stepped on his foot because he was touching the top of his left foot as he was in discomfort on Sunday. But it turns out he was running around. It got twisted up, is what the Giants said. So is an ankle sprain. It is a real injury. Now, the question is, how much can he go? I mean, one conversation we were having on the sideline today was like, do you remember when Odell Beckham Jr. was here? Yes, he had injuries and he missed time. So it's not like he didn't miss time with injuries. But Odell's body recovered differently than other people's. Like he would recover faster than the normal human from nagging injuries, from things that, would keep guys out a long time. Like he's a complete physical freak and also like a hard worker. So I was almost wondering, standing out there watching Nabers, like, jumping one-handed catch at one point early on when Mike Groh was throwing to the receivers and individuals, just thinking, hey, I wonder if he's got that superpower too, Like I said, grabbed the back of his right leg at one point, looked like he was in discomfort. Maybe just a cramp, though. Hopefully just a cramp. He did finish the practice. All right, Joey B, what's going on? Joey B, always here with us. Really appreciate you. What a dedicated Giants fan. Joey B, are you going to Houston? Who's going to Houston? Come on, get in the chat. Tell me if you're going down there. Benny Fowler interview was a good one. Thank you, D-Kit. Benny is a really, really smart former player, won a Super Bowl with the Broncos, caught Peyton Manning's last NFL pass in that Super Bowl in the end zone, and is like one of the all-time people and guys I've met in football. He's going to actually, Benny and I are going to, during the NFL season, we're actually going to do podcast episodes where we break down each week. So it could be either Sunday morning or Sunday night or Monday morning. Do a little more Monday morning quarterback type, chop it up. What did you see? What did you think about some of the key storylines and games in the NFL, in addition to our Talkin Ball lives? So really excited about that. Yes, everybody, all check out Tuto. He dropped in the comments here. It's about to happen, mate, on Rugby Saturday, 6 a.m. Eastern, season opener, mate. Please pray for our victory and also for our victims. Tuto brings the trash talk, as always. Tuto, we want to see you go the Steph Curry go to sleep route when you knock someone on their rear end in this game. Give us the Steph Curry. I want to see that picture. All right. Matt Smith says, I went to high school with a Matt Smith. He says, hey, Pat, I guess everybody did. Pat, what would be the most shocking outcome this season that is still realistic? Like Daboll fired midseason, Daniel Jones plays into third year of contract, etc. Shock me. The most shocking, Matt, the most shocking to me would be like the Giants making a playoff run. That would be the most shocking thing to me. So I guess Daniel Jones playing in the third year of his contract, but the Giants making a deep playoff run or even making the playoffs would be the most shocking to me. It's funny you mentioned the Daboll thing about, whether he's going to keep his job or not, because I get all kinds of emails and information from odds makers. And I got an email today from, let's see where this is from, bookies.com. Bookies.com senior handicapper Adam Thompson has developed hypothetical odds as to which NFL coach will be fired first during the 2024 NFL season. And guess who is first? Brian Daboll plus 300 at 25% likely to be fired first. After that, Matt Eberflus, Bears plus 450, Dennis Allen plus 550, Mike McCarthy plus 650, and then Nick Sirianni, Robert Saleh, Todd Bowles, Jonathan Gannon, and the field. So that just came in today. You made me think of that when you asked that question. So that was interesting to me because I know I saw odds earlier, maybe like a couple weeks ago, that I think had Robert Saleh at the top of the list and had Eberflus second. Eberflus has been consistently like right there at number 2 in the odds that I've seen, but that one was interesting to me, caught my eye, was in the subject line. Daboll most likely to be fired first, according to this one odds maker at bookies.com. So take that for what it's worth. Let's see. Joey B says, long week, bro. No doubt. What about Ayir Asante? Any news? Involved in the return game, Joey B. I hope when he gets in the game in the slot with the threes, he can make some plays and they put the ball in his hands. I like him. But not enough opportunities in that first game. I hope he gets more in this one. But obviously the starters are playing now. So these games become tougher. When they play the starters, it becomes tougher on these guys at the bottom of the roster and the fringe of the roster because you're really getting even fewer snaps than you got in the first preseason game, right? Sean Lee says, what's up, Pat? I have a feeling that Trey Hawkins will be CB2 before we know it. What do you think? I think they were gassing him up after an encouraging first game in order to help him like kind of increase his confidence and make him feel good about, what he can build on, because I think they would love for him to be the guy that he looked like in the training camp of his rookie season last year coming out of Old Dominion. So I think that what they would love for him to be that. The question is whether he can be. He looks like it, like he has the body type. He's obviously still very young. I mean, if you met Trey, earnest kid, looks like a guy who is still young and learning, right? Like you would be shocked at how young he comes off at times, but is physically capable, has made plays in this training camp. He's just one of those players. And listen, this is all around the league. This isn't just Giants, right? Like Dante Miller, for example, Turbo is a good example of this at running back. When I asked Brian Daboll about him the other day, Daboll was kind of pouring cold water on the idea that Turbo was going to be a factor on the regular season roster right away. Because he said, like, listen, yes, he's fast, he's a playmaker, but there are a lot of things that go into playing the running back position. And so that's kind of an implication that, well, when the bullets start flying and this becomes real and we're playing against teams ones, it might not look the same. And we don't necessarily trust player X to do, we trust him with A, B, and C, but not D, E, F, and G, right? So I think Trey Hawkins is like that as well, even though he's a second player. At least that's what comes off to me. All right. Looks like we got another super chat. It's Mr. Godfrey 87. Mr. Godfrey, what's up? Thanks for checking in. $5. Appreciate you. He says, I will be attending the game Saturday. What time do they come out for warm-ups? Hoping for an autograph. FYI, the best Giants fans stay in Dallas, Texas. I get it. Dallas is legit. Party town. Great place to be. Good golf. Good nightlife. Good hotels. Good everything. Easy to get around. Love Dallas. Let's see. So what time do they come out for warm-ups? Well, inactives come out 90 minutes before. They come out for warm-ups usually around that time and or a little bit before. So I would like, if I'm you, I'm going into the stadium. What the game is, I think 12 local time, 1:00 Eastern time. Like I will be in the stadium by 8 a.m. and I will be watching the field hopefully by 9:30 a.m., something like that. Or I'll be there at 7:30 and watching at 9:30. So to give you an idea, like if I'm you, I'm going in as early as the stadium opens. That's what I'm doing. As much as tailgating is fun. Let's see. Did I hear correctly that running back Tyrone Tracy's ankle isn't broken? So I guess it's a high sprain. They reportedly it's a low sprain. Now, Michael, I got to be honest. I don't know what to think in situations like this. Like you got, Evan Neal, they say it's a sprain, it's a break. Drew Lock, they say he could come back into the game. He's fine. He's got a hip, he's got an oblique. So, I mean, now listen, good news, obviously, that he goes to the hospital, special surgery with an immobilized air cast on his ankle, gets carted off. He's crying, and it turns out it's not that serious. That's great news. I just want to do a wait and see here. But like I said, listen, who thought he was going to be on the field doing some work, ladder work with the trainers on the side? Good to see. So, yes, as far as we know, it's an ankle sprain. I'm comfortable saying it's an ankle sprain. That's what I'm comfortable saying at the moment. Manny Madrigal says, is DeVito on the roster in September? I say no, Manny. That's my guess. But if they keep him, I could understand, or there's a part of me that feels like, oh, they'll keep him because the fans will like to still come to the games to see him no matter what happens with the season. But then there's another part of me that is watching the way he's playing on the field and just feeling like merit-based wise, he doesn't deserve to be on the roster. And not that Drew Lock has played great either, but they guaranteed Drew Lock money, and he's an NFL player. Bill Hartnett says, with Drew Lock injured, that's a lock, pun intended. I wouldn't say so, but I guess that could be a factor if it lingers that much. But Drew Lock said he's not concerned about regular season availability. OG says, hey, Pat, how come Chris and Bad Dog don't like you? Chris said on a live chat he doesn't listen to you. Isn't he with Patty Traina? Just asking. You talking about Biz, like Chris Bisignano? Chris Bisignano and I are good buddies, if that's who you're talking about. I think if you're talking about Biz, we're cool. He's the man. Let's see. Gabe says, Patty and Pat have beef. We do not have beef. I do not have beef. No beef here. Dave Z says they do a better job identifying ankle injuries than last year. Cross your fingers. The Evan Neal debacle. Well said. See, Gabe says some people don't like Pat's work because of how much negative he writes and not as much positive. But when the team's been so bad for so long, that's hard. Some people believe Pat only is negative. That's fair, Chronicles, as far as if somebody has a problem. But see, I always contend negative's the wrong word. Like critical is the word, like usually from my vantage point, when somebody says I've written something negative, it just means they don't like that information got out. It doesn't mean like it's a bad thing. You know what I mean? So yeah, but you're right, Chronicles. Like that is kind of like a lay of the land of how the media tends to work with teams at times too. It's their job to try to get good press out. It's my job to try to tell the truth. Sometimes those things aren't the same. D Kit says Pat Leonard on NBC, mainstream media. Oh, with me being on the Today Show. Yeah. So how about your boy on the Today Show, huh? That was cool. Yeah, I should have led with that, huh? Forgot about that. That was fun. Big Daddy Rich Salgado. If you guys didn't see that episode already, go check that out. Good friend, a lot of fun. He came out with the Today Show crew to Giants camp. I was lucky enough to not end up on the cutting room floor and ended up on a Today Show feature about Big Daddy Rich Salgado, insurance guy for the Stars and for people in general. You can go check that out. Should be all over my Twitter. It's on the Today Show website. I can shoot you guys a link if you want it. You could DM me on Instagram and I'll share it with you. That was a lot of fun. But no, it won't get to my head, D-Kit. But you got to admit, pretty cool. Especially because you start getting like calls and texts when you're on a show like that from people all over the place. You know what I mean? Just like random people. Like, hey, saw you on the Today Show. People who just had their TV on. Was it one of my bosses actually had the TV on, wasn't even watching, and heard my voice. And he was like, he's like, is that Pat? Did I leave the phone on? Is Pat on the phone? So that was pretty cool. John Kirk, $5 super chat. Thank you, John. Let me take a sip of my old fashioned, getting a little hoarse here. John Kirk says, does Tommy DeVito make the 53? If no, do you think someone will claim him off the practice squad? Do teams get comp for practice players taken? No, they do not get comp for practice players taken. If a team signs a player off your practice squad, if a team signs a player off your practice squad, I believe they guarantee that player 3 weeks regular season salary. So the player gets a guarantee in that case so basically like they can try to poach a guy off your practice squad. And then the incentive for the player leaving a spot that he's familiar with to go somewhere different, even if, I feel more wanted, is they're guaranteed to be able to be there for 3 weeks and paid for 3 weeks so that it's not like they get in the room and, or they get in the locker room, they get on that team. And then, suddenly it's like, oh, I'm dumped in 5 days and I got nowhere to go. Right. So that protects them like that a little bit. I don't think DeVito makes the 53. Someone just brought up earlier that Drew Lock injury. Could that impact it? Could that lead to DeVito being on the roster? Yeah, possibly. Lock didn't seem too concerned with that. I personally think merit-based, just watching how they've played, I do not think Tommy gets a roster spot. But again, popular locally, if the Giants hit the skids early, putting him in the game could be the only thing that keeps fans in the seats. Like if things get bad, right? So just thinking of all scenarios here. But if you're merit-based making your 53, I don't think he's on it. No. Let's see. Mike Ross checks in with another super chat just as he did last time. Thank you, Mike. He says, Pat, on the Today Show, you are a celeb now. Let's go. Yeah, it was very cool. Very cool. It's incredible, by the way, how being on a show like that for like 7 seconds, what it does for people recognizing you. You know what I mean? Like that, 7 seconds on the Today Show is, 5 hours on, some channel somewhere that nobody's watching. You know what I mean? Like I can't imagine what they charge for advertisers, frankly. Let's see. Bill says, Pat is great. Chris is great. Multiple things can be true at the same time. Just saying. No doubt. Mike says, do you think the secondary has gotten better since the start of last year? No. I think it has gotten worse because they have less experience there. Now their secondary, there were guys not playing well last year as well. But listen, losing McKinney was the best player in their secondary. And Love was one of the better players in their secondary 2 years ago, and they're both gone. McKinney's going to be a key loss unless, in my opinion, Nubin is the guy, like right away. I mean, for this season, I'm just talking about this season. Because, I think Pinnock is what he is. In other words, athletic, skilled blitzer, a guy who can do a lot. He's versatile. You can use him, Swiss Army knife type. He can go up and get the ball. We saw him with a pick 6 in Miami, right? So he has made plays. I don't think he's a McKinney level player in any sense of the word. I don't think he will become a McKinney level player. Dane Belton, I think, is more of a 3 than a 2 at the safety spot. And, I think Nubin, you need him to be the guy who replaces the production and, let's say, the deterrence that McKinney was in the secondary. So I think that'll go a long way to helping them either hold water or clearly be worse. I think the corner position is a huge concern. You're asking Banks to immediately become something way more than what he was last year, even though there were a lot of encouraging signs last year. You're asking either Nick McLeod or Cordell Flott or Trey Hawkins to be your starting outside 2. Your slot right now is either a rookie who is hurt, David Long Jr., a veteran who's kind of savvy. He's had a pretty good camp, but traditionally hasn't been an every week starter. But I do like what I've seen from him. And then Isaiah Simmons, who's not a corner. So depending on the matchup, he either gains the advantage or loses it. So, I think it's worse on paper. We'll see if those guys meet the challenge that is being expected of them. And I do think Nubin is a huge key to that. Dexter Lawrence is more of an 18-wheeler than a NASCAR, says Dave. Yeah, no doubt. I was just referring to the NASCAR package being going back to Spags, with that elite Giants pass rush in 2007. The NASCAR package being like putting Aziz inside when you essentially have 4 down rushers instead of, the traditional like 2 D tackles or 2 interiors and 2 outside. Dave Z says, Pat is great. Honest coverage is much better than fluff. Thank you, Dave. I'm still on Kubis watch, Pat. I hope he plays on Saturday, D-Kit. Yeah, so FYI, I do believe their second offensive line, this is how they lined up at practice. Second offensive line was Josh Azudu, left tackle, Jake Kubis, left guard, Austin Slotman, center, Jalen Mayfield, right guard, and Evan Neal, right tackle. That was how they showed at practice, just saying. And D-Kit says, super chat for the Kubis news. That guy can play. I missed that one earlier, D-Kit. Sorry about that. Appreciate you. Yeah, that's my feeling on Kubis right now. I mean, because, there's a young guy like that has to pass through waivers, and he's gonna get snapped up. All right, let's see. Another sip of the old fashioned here. All right, let's see. Triple digits in the chat now for a while. Really appreciate all of you. OG Knockout says, Pat, I want to be excited about this season, but we still have Daniel Jones, and I don't think Joe Shane has done a good job so far. His draft picks need to show up this year. Not looking good, Joe. Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up Daniel, because obviously a headline of this game is like not to overlook the obvious. Daniel Jones is healthy. He's healthy on the knee. He's playing in the game. He's their quarterback. He's their clear number one. He's got a chip on his shoulder. Like, all of that is good stuff, right? So you like seeing that, OG. And, I think in the sense of Daniel, I asked him actually a question about, I said, you have Nabers as your number one weapon now instead of a running back in Saquon. How different is your offense? And, he said, we have a lot of faith in Malik. I think he's going to be good for us. We're excited about what we're going to do. But interesting comment Daniel made. He said, we're still trying to figure out what we're going to major in on offense. So in other words, work in progress, happening on offense for them to really feel out exactly what it's all going to look like. But obviously Nabers is going to be the huge part of that. Skipped over a couple here. Sorry, let me get back into it. Mike Goodman says Evan Neal should grow a beard. That is funny, Mike. I am starring that comment. Hilarious. You're the man. OG says, I know what you're saying, Pat, but this is still a question. Oh, I know what you're saying, but this is a question for Pat since he said it on his live chat. Just saying. Yeah, I got you. Let's see. Okay, you guys are talking amongst yourselves. Sorry about that. Houston starters are playing too, so maybe it depends on what they do also as far as how long the Giants play. That can impact it. I do think, though, really, Barb, it's more like they go in, see, there's certain things they want to see. And once they see them, then they're out. Let's see. All right. Thanks for clarifying the ankle sprain with Nabers. You got it. Chronicle says, what reporter asked the running back coach about Saquon as a joke? No one thought it was funny. Honestly, don't know if it gets more unprofessional. I need to know who it was. My guess is Ryan, who can't move on. No, I'm not going to air out anybody. And honestly, I should have cut that out of the video because, it was a little bit of an awkward moment. It was just somebody trying to play a little fun. It was not Ryan Dunleavy, though. But I agree with you. That didn't need to be said. It was kind of one of those things that in the spring was like a topical joke, but now is kind of like, let's move on type thing, right? Hate that Drew Phillip news, says Rod. Yeah, me too. Hopefully he gets back, for the regular season. He was out there standing on the field, like I said, cleats and I believe a helmet in his hand, but not doing much. So hopefully he continues to work. Anthony says, any word on how Theo Johnson has worked? So he's getting a lot of run with the first teamers, all of his run really now with the first teamers. Obviously, though, the tight ends are mixing and matching in different spots on all the second and third team as well, because a lot of them are hurt. So they only have a few healthy, or a handful healthy, I should say. Johnson is, he's dropped a good amount of passes in the last few days, maybe like dog days of camp type thing for a rookie. I still think the design is for him to eventually grow into this number one role, though he has dropped a fair amount of passes in the last few days. So we'll continue to look at that. I mean, listen, that happens. I mean, Darius Slayton dropped a ton of passes in his first practice as a Giant. He's led them in receiving last for the last 5 years, right? But I think Theo helps him the run game as well as the pass game. So I think that keeps him on the field too. With Daboll being a QB guru, how did we not draft Joe Milton? Fabian, good question. I believe that the color coding of the Giants draft board in that Hard Knocks episode had Milton pegged for a possible position change. I got to double check that, but I think that's what somebody said. Wasn't he in yellow? And I think that was something that somebody turned up was that they thought it might have indicated potential position change. So I have to dig a little bit more into that. I agree though, Fabian. Obviously I misled you guys a little bit during the draft about thinking that in the mid rounds they were going QB. But I was also being told by people connected to the situation that they were likely going a QB at some point. So it wasn't like I was making it up. You know what I mean? Like that was something that was supposedly on the board and that they didn't do. I agree though. I thought apparently, Milton definitely has limitations as far as, reading the field, running offenses, things like that. But the physical talent is there. I'm happy Daboll is calling plays. Wasn't thrilled with Kafka, says Barb. Yeah, I mean, it's now or never for Daboll. It was disappointing they couldn't get Nabers a target in the first game on those 12 snaps. Hopefully, if he plays, he gets a target in this game. Barb says Daboll is not getting fired. Agree to disagree there if they struggle, Barb. Obviously, if they start out well and this starts turning around, then of course, hey, believe in your guy, right? But pressure on him to win early, I think. Fabian agrees with Barb. He says, no way Daboll is getting fired in season minus a complete meltdown. Possible. We'll see. OG Knockout says, the minute they kept Daniel Jones, they fired themselves, Pat. Yeah, and frankly, I think there's a lot of pressure on them early. I know I've been saying this all spring. I've been saying this all summer. But really, the way they start this season is going to dictate the answer to all of those comments and questions, I think. I think there's a lot of pressure on them to start fast immediately, to get it going, and to not let it slide early. If it slides early, it could get ugly fast. Hirsch, what's going on? Good to see you. Ken says, do you notice Daniel Jones begins every answer with If not, you will now. Not only do I notice that, Ken, I do feel like, I think I've talked to Daniel about this before too. Like he has been coached and is very trained and kind of, what's the word? He's intentional about how he handles questions. I think, Ken, he has a way of giving himself a beat and a breath to take a step and to think and to not answer quickly, but to think about it for a few seconds before he talks. And so, if you were to talk to him and ask him a question on camera, you'll notice the way he looks at you, pauses, and like you said, he says, and then he goes in the answer. I feel like calculated is the wrong word. I feel like it's a coached, like a method for him to almost like be in a rhythm, to feel like he's under control, saying what he wants to say and not saying what he doesn't. From being around him so much, I feel like he's very like buttoned up in that regard. So that's why I attribute that to. By the way, Ken, just my 2 cents into that, I listen to so many podcasts and being in this space and also admiring people like Colin Cowherd as far as, or Nick Wright or anybody who is accomplished in the world of, takes, talk radio, analysis, podcasting. And of course you might have different opinions about different personalities, but I mean, I'm talking specifically from an ability to carry an audience, to carry a show, to be someone who is a brand in and of themselves. Right. And one thing I notice when I listen to a lot of those people is that they don't say, they don't say like, they don't say, you know what I mean? They don't say, right. They are continually producing intelligent and thoughtful and direct phrases. And I know this is kind of getting in the weeds of like a guy who is basically, an English major and a journalist by trade and a reporter and a writer and all those things. But I do notice listening to the professionals, the more I do this and the more we do this, how hard it is sometimes to not just like, if one of you asks me a question and I don't immediately have the answer, it's hard not to say, or it's hard not to say, well, it's hard not to do that, I just did it. And being conversational is important. And I think that's a part of the way I talk. I think conversational is relatable, and it's also just who I am. Like, I'm not playing a character right now. Who you see right now is who I am. But it's just, you're sending me off on a tangent there, Ken, but it's just something that I find interesting listening to the people who have really succeeded at the highest level of this business. Is they don't hesitate. They don't say in between words. They are very direct and they are immediate, and they don't waste a single word. Chronicles says, Godfrey, I would get there when the buses arrive, and after the game, by the buses, players will usually sign. That's good advice, Chronicles. Also, usually find where the tunnel is that the road team comes out of, and get down there as well. That's because they're usually coming out, they're hanging down there, right? That's always a great place to be as well. If you get in early, you can get there and get up on the railing. D Kit says, Pat, H-Town is going to be hot and humid. I've already talked to people down there. They said the same thing. I don't think there's going to be any problem, knock on wood, of my flight getting in there from a weather standpoint. But apparently once I land and get off the plane, it's going to be hot. Mark says, hi, Pat. What do you think happens to Azudu and McKeithen? New viewer. Mark, thanks for coming. Thanks for joining the podcast. Appreciate it. I think Marcus McKeithen gets cut, draft pick. Be interesting to see how many draft picks Joe Shane actually cuts in this round. So I think McKeithen is clearly out. Josh Azudu, just depends on how many linemen they keep. I mean, Josh was speaking to me, right, about continuing to grow, feeling like he's getting there, feeling like he's developing as both a guard and a tackle. 3rd round pick. So hard to cut a guy like that from a GM standpoint, or you're just trying to continue to give him a chance to prove that he can help you in some of those ways. But then you're talking about, like I said, the front 5, Stinney, Kubis, Neal, and Azudu. So are you keeping 9 linemen then? That would be 9 linemen, right? Joey B says, Pat, if you don't have any haters or people talking about you, then you ain't doing enough. No doubt, Joey B, as they say, any press is good press. I mean, I don't know if that's always true, but I don't mind the phrase. OG says, Pat, we are living in a time where people hate the truth these days. Please keep preaching facts, bro. Don't be a homer for likes. I will never be that, OG. I will never be that. Thank you, both of you, for saying that. And I'm not. Listen, I love you guys, and I love making new relationships and connecting to you guys in this community. And I consider you all my friends to an extent, right? But I'm not in this business to make friends. I have enough friends. I don't need people on Twitter to give me a virtual hug every day when I wake up. I'm here to do a job. I'm doing a job. And that job is to bring information to people, right? Let's see. So Bill says, so they were talking about Chris the Entertainer, not Chris Bisignano. Just clarifying for you, so you don't go up to Bisignano and say, what, do we have beef? Chris the Entertainer, I don't think we have any kind of issue, but like I always say, I respect all the content creators out there for sure. So, hey, yeah, listen, I think the one difference would be there are a lot of content creators covering the Giants or producing podcasts or shows about the Giants are Giants fans first. And then they launch that podcast right out of their passion and fandom and those kind of things. And that's great. But so I think it's not the same exact space that we're in, right? I'm a reporter and an analyst and a columnist doing a podcast on the Giants and the NFL. So I could totally understand how sometimes the things I say and the things that somebody who's doing a podcast as a Giants fan would say, they might prefer that not be said, or they don't agree, right? That's just part of it. OG says, so if Daniel Jones failed again this year, what's going to be the excuse, people? Yeah, well, this is it, right? This is it. As Benny Fowler said in my podcast interview with him, which is really good, by the way. I mean, the headline of it is the Ayuk conversation, but Benny and I, we talked about a lot. Like, we talked about a lot of Giants talk there. And one thing he said about Daniel was essentially, he better be ready for the smoke either way, because it's coming. So, whether or not however he feels like he's going to handle it or he's not going to handle it, like he better be ready for it because it's on its way, essentially. Ken with a $2 super chat after asking a good question. Thank you, Ken. Really appreciate that support. No Mets. Hey, Pat, great offseason coverage. Thank you, No Mets. Thank you for being here. You're always supporting us. Big time supporter. Really appreciate you. Oh, we got another super chat checking in. It's Bill Hartnett saying, here's your virtual hug, Pat. Shout out to all the regulars, Big Dash, Joey B, Barb, OG, D Kit, and many more. Thank you, Bill. Really appreciate that. Yeah, I don't think he's on right now, but Authentic and I coming up are going to end up doing a Talkin Ball live together. So I teased that last time. We are going to do that. I'm looking forward to that. And then some other, diehard Giants fans or content creators, we will end up doing that at different times as we go. Like I said, it's not going to be every live chat, but every once in a while, I want to thank somebody who's supporting me and also promote people who are producing great content. And Bill, thank you so much for the support and for the really good questions and insight during this. Really appreciate it. Also, thanks for clarifying it wasn't Biz Ignano, because that would have been a fun conversation for sure. Cheers to all of you. Another old-fashioned drink. Need a sip of water here too. Going to give you guys a quick ad read in the middle of our podcast here on Boom Chaga, because I think you all really should hear about this product. I think you'd like it. Talkin Ball with Pat Leonard is brought to you by the Boom Chaga Mushroom Super Drink right here over my shoulder. It is a natural extract loaded with anti-inflammatory, immune-boosting antioxidants and heart-healthy compounds. You can easily pour this natural liquid supplement into any of your favorite drinks. I put mine in my coffee every morning and immediately feel the difference. I personally have felt a post-workout-like energy boost with Boom. Chaga also has the ability to lower cholesterol, reduce inflammation, and improve immune and heart health with its beta-glucans and antioxidants. Go to boomchaga.com today to place your first order. And if you use the discount code TalkinBall25 or access it through the QR code on your screen right here, you will get a 25% off your first subscribe and save order. Right now, that means a month's supply costs only $30. Start feeling the difference today at boomchaga.com. Also brought to you by BetOnline and Estate 98 Coffee. Go to estate98.com/talkinball to get a special buy one, get one free deal. And just like D-Kit did with us before, guys, if you buy Boom Chaga on the deal or you buy Estate 98, please tell us what you think. Please get back to us in the chat. Tell us what you think. I know you'll love both if you try them. And remember, with Boom Chaga, go to subscribe and save. Use Talkin Ball 25. You'll get that discount down to 30. And then if you don't want to stay subscribed, you just cancel it out. No penalties for canceling. It's not going to tie you to anything. All right. Let's get back into the chat. Shane will be scouting college QBs all season. Hirsch for real says, I agree with you there, Hirsch. Be interesting to see if, like, really this season, of course, as a Giants fan, you want the team to win. If the team's not going to win, what you want is for them to have a soft landing into a high draft pick. Now, it's hard to have a soft landing into a high draft pick, but I guess what the scenario you'd be looking at is if Shane's drafting a QB in the top 5 or 6 or 7 next year, you're looking at a situation where they have a new coach and he's still the general manager there, is what you're looking at if he's the GM there. Ken says, is Ed Valentine as boring in person as he is on his podcast? Oh, Ken, that's not nice. Ed Valentine is the man. I love Ed. Listen, Ed drives a long way to Giants all the time. Like, let me just say this. As far as work ethic goes and people who put in the effort and show up and are there a lot, often, always giving it their all, and traveling great distances, like it's not convenient. I mean, Ed really works hard, and he's a really nice guy and really cares. And so I'm a big Ed Valentine fan. Danny Dudd says, Chris is a jabroni. Oh, come on, guys. Be nice. He's a sellout. Notice he will never say anything negative about Mara's favorite QB, a.k.a. pretend Eli Manning, better known as Danny Crimes. Well, that's, listen, I don't begrudge somebody, like there could be a Giants fan one place who has a podcast who really believes in Daniel Jones. And then there could be somebody who has a giant, like Chris, like you're saying. There could be somebody who really believes in Shane Bowen as a DC and doesn't think the defense is going to regress with Wink Martindale gone. There could be somebody who thinks that Jalen Hyatt is going to take the next step, whatever it is. Like pick one, right? And so everybody's entitled to their own opinion. Definitely not throwing shade on any of these content creators. I hope everybody has success. I want to lift everybody up. But if people are talking trash, I appreciate you guys having my back here. The Talking Ballers, appreciate you. Julian Love being let go for $6 million a year, biggest Joe Shane mistake, says Ken. No doubt. People here know it. They still know it. It still comes up. Believe that. That's the problem. Joe Shane isn't doing a good job. A good GM would have known not to give Daniel Jones all that money, OG says. Listen, in the moment, I thought that assuming that Joe Shane was in a position where he had to get Daniel Jones done to some kind of deal, I thought he did the best he could in that spot. But I continue to come back to, we've talked about it before. If your initial decision was, hey, we're going to tag Daniel, like that's what we think he's worth right now and not worth a contract extension, and then we're going to sign Saquon to a multi-year deal, I don't know how you go from that to the flip-flop of tagging the running back and signing the quarterback to the major extension. Like, it's either one or the other. Come on. Fabian says, thank you. Everyone acts like Banks is a guaranteed CB1. Yeah, no, the Giants have areas of their roster that they're hoping will become what they need it to be, but they don't have proof yet that it will. Listen, there's other teams doing that. I'm not picking on the Giants there, right? Like, look at the Eagles, they're counting on Devin White to suddenly be the Devin White of 4 years ago. Their first round pick at corner, Quinyon Mitchell, is playing nickel, right? First round pick on a corner and he's playing nickel, Bryce Huff hasn't had like a dominant camp. Can he be a top pass rusher? They're projecting he will be. You don't know if he will be. That's just one example of another team where it's like, you do have to put faith in young guys to continue to grow and coach them up. But you also, if you count on too many guys on your roster and you hope for too many guys on your roster to take that next step, I mean, is it all going to happen? Big Dash, my man Big Dash says, bunch of lazy folks in here. Hit that like button. Big Dash, thank you for saying that. I probably should have given a reminder as well. Guys, thank you for all the super chats and super stickers. If you pay for one, your comment or question gets answered or addressed immediately. If not, if you can please just hit the like button right now. As we're talking, just press like on the video, the thumbs up. What that does is that tells YouTube while we are live that you're loving what you're seeing. And if there's anything I know about social media and these platforms, it's that live engagement means a ton. Like, you liking my video, watching it after the fact means less in the algorithm than liking it while I'm live. And so I appreciate all of that support. The super chats, the likes, even just you asking a question. Fantastic. Keeping the conversation going. Or even if you're just sitting here watching, that's fine too. But thank you so much. And Big Dash, thanks for the reminder. If you guys are new, like I saw, there's first timers in here. Not only do I do Talkin Ball with Pat Leonard, typically on Mondays and Thursdays at 9 p.m. Eastern. Sometimes it changes up, but usually it's 9 o'clock Eastern, Mondays, Thursdays. Also, I do Talkin Ball live post game after every Giants game. So I'm really excited about this week's because I'm going down to NRG Stadium in Houston, and not a lot of people are making this trip, frankly. It's going to be kind of a bare bones media contingent, preseason. Listen, you're lucky if your outlet's going to send you, right? Sometimes they say no. Sometimes they say we're going to spend on the regular season instead of the preseason. You have to be there, though. I think you have to be there. I'm grateful that the New York Daily News is sending me to this game in Houston. I think it's going to mean a lot. The starters are playing. I think it's a big deal. I think it's the biggest, game of the summer, clearly by far. And I'm looking forward to covering it. But bottom line, I bring this up because I'm going to come out of that locker room as one of a handful of people in that locker room, talking to guys, being there in person, watching the game. And I'm going to have a lot of unique insight to bring you guys direct right here on the YouTube channel, Talkin Ball Live from Houston. It's going to be a crazy and a fun day too. Covering the game in Houston, come up to the press box and do a Talkin Ball Live with you all on the right here on the computer screen, live from Houston. And then afterwards, heading right to the airport and taking basically a red eye, an 8 p.m. flight home from Houston back to Newark. So looking forward to that, and looking forward to that Talkin Ball Live. I think that post-game live is really going to be a big one, because there's going to be a lot to talk about. All the starters are playing, or everyone who's healthy is going to play at least. And I think there's going to be a lot of buzz around that game. Evan Spitzberg says, in your opinion, from watching practice and getting observations, what is the position group on this team? Best position group on this team? Best position group on the team. That's an interesting question. I think, I guess it would be edge rusher. If Kayvon has a well-rounded season, so like gets to the quarterback and does the little things well, and then you have Brian Burns there who plays to the level he's being paid at. And then you have one of the guys behind them, Azeez Ojulari, Boogie Basham, one of those guys. If one of them pops behind them, you're talking about a 3-deep edge rushing unit and rotation that you can count on, and that is getting to the quarterback. We'll see if the production happens the way that we're expecting and that Giants fans are hoping. But I would say it's that position. And based on the investment of a first-round pick and the almost $30 million to Burns, I think it has to be. Big Dash, just shout out to the chat. Man of the people, Big Dash. Appreciate you. Hirsch says, Pat likes the old-fashioned more than John Mara. That might be the quote of like any Talkin Ball live. Hirsch, you are hilarious. I am dying right now. I'm going to write that down. What was that? Van Wilder? Write that down. Remember that then. Let's see. Joey B says, I'm not making any of the preseason games, so I'm thinking of going to Jets Giants. I need some football, man. Yeah, you should. You should get a little taste, right? You should try to get a ticket to the Jets Giants joint practice next week in Florham Park. And no, I can't help you there. Sorry. I want an old fashioned, but I'm fresh out of bullets, says Big Dash. Yeah, Big Dash and I are big old fashioned guys. Today I'm going with a Woodford Reserve. So it's Woodford. I got a 1.75 liter bottle of Woodford that I bought basically like in July. It was just, wherever I go, here comes the party, right? And so it's Woodford, and then like the premix with it, with some Luxardo cherries and a King Cube and an orange slice. So that's the mix tonight, Big Dash. I know you're curious. Matthew Kelly says, hey, Pat, I live in the Boston area. A lot of the beat reporters up here don't think Drake May is progressing very quickly. Maybe it's better for Daboll that the trade never went through. Well, I do think Drake May would be better off in a place with better offensive coordinator, maybe an offensive head coach. Ben McAdoo is up there, our friend from New York. He does know what he's doing with quarterbacks. He wasn't a good head coach necessarily that second season, lost the locker room, but Ben knows what he's doing, got to the playoffs with the Giants, and knows quarterbacks. So he could help the development there eventually. I think obviously JJ McCarthy getting hurt, a huge blow in Minnesota, but you saw how he was starting to look and develop with Kevin O'Connell there. No doubt in my mind that if Drake May was there and it was reversed, that Drake May would be having an encouraging summer. So I do think where you land matters too. But that was one thing you heard about Drake May, Matthew, was that if the Giants went up and got him, they weren't going up and getting their week one starter necessarily, even though usually it does still tend to trend that way. Like you draft a guy to replace a guy. It's more than the writing on the wall, but just that he's a player that could maybe use some seasoning and development. And honestly, you were hearing the same thing about McCarthy. So I think where you go matters. OG says only time being a homer is cool is when the team is winning. if they're losing, you sound like a fool talking good about a team that's been bad since 2011, to be for real. Totally agree. Let's see. Mike says, I don't want Nabers to be like Odell Beckham Jr. getting injured in a preseason game and never being the same, especially with how important this season is. Yeah, well, I think you would take it being like Odell if he got hurt and missed a few games early. What was it, 4? And then you come out and basically are like one of the best rookies ever. Like his numbers were in like 12 games were astounding all-time numbers, right, for a rookie. And he only played 12 games. So, I guess you would take the OBJ comp in that respect, but I totally hear you, Mike. And I kind of agree with you. I do agree with you. Noel, hey, Pat, appreciate all your good work, bro. Thank you, Noel. Thanks for saying that. Do you notice any big differences between the way new special teams coordinator does things compared to Thomas McGahee? There was a period the other day where when they were working on kind of half field blocking, they were jokingly kind of like throwing the ball instead of punting it, like as if it was a punt, to Casey Kreider, Graham Gano, and Jude McTominay. And they were having them like jokingly return the ball up to the blocking scheme. And I will say I wasn't a fan of it. Like, don't accidentally run Graham into somebody's back and get him hurt. Like, what are we doing? But no, what I noticed from Gabriel is he's extremely vocal, loud voice. You always know where he is on the field. He is younger, but he is stern. He does definitely carries himself like an authority figure. I mean, not different from McGahee carrying himself like an authority figure, but he seems detail oriented. He talks a lot about how much they're doing behind the scenes as far as like digging into details and permutations and variables and options for kickoff. I mean, this year everything's different because they're doing so much work on the new kickoff rule. I mean, it's taking up so much of their imaginations, their time, and they're trying to find a way to gain an advantage on those plays. So, I think more than anything, that's what you see. I do think, Noel, like from a standpoint of who their returners are going to be, maybe we'll see a big difference there between now. It was weird. It always felt like when McGahee had returners back there who didn't make a lot of sense, it always felt like he was saying it was above his decision-making, like that it was someone else's decision, that it wasn't what he wanted. Like he wasn't saying that outwardly, but it sounded like he was implying that, but it does feel like this guy, Gabriel, is, especially early on, was trying to kind of try a lot of different guys there and see what sticks. Now, with McGahee, usually what we saw was like in the preseason, they would try a lot of people and then they would settle on 1 or 2 guys and like never move off of them, or whatever the case may be. So, we'll see. I always felt like, because listen, everybody, like the GM and coach are involved in the roster decision. So it's not like the special team coordinator has final say on who's returning punts and kicks. So we'll wait and see there. Chowski says, do you think the strength and conditioning coaches should be criticized for non-contact injuries just as much as the turf debate? I think the strength and conditioning coaches, I mean, I think it's the training staff as well. Like you have to put them all together. Like everybody's involved in those conversations. Strength staff, conditioning staff, training room, trainers, coaches, GM, like they all talk about these plans, guys on snap counts, who's going to be managed, who's not, who's up, who's down, all that stuff. The training room drives a lot of that, or has throughout the time that I've been with the Giants. I know Aaron Wellman in the strength and conditioning room is part of that as well. So I think everybody involved in the process needs to be, to re-examine things when those things happen. And I just feel like also they all need to be held accountable when things go wrong and receive credit when they go right. So I feel like it always feels like the blame usually ends up going to the head coach, or people blame a conditioning coach, or they say the strength coach's fault, or they say the assistant coach's fault. But everybody's involved in this, right? Training rooms involved in it too, et cetera. Color coding is exactly why the Giants did not draft Milton or any other QB. He did not pass the test. I'm glad I saw where you were going with that before I read the end of it, Danny. Mike says, do you think the Giants end up in the Arch Manning sweepstakes? Not impossible. not impossible. I mean, doesn't it feel like very Giants for them to end up in those sweepstakes, right? Doesn't it feel very Manning for him to be steered to New York if they're able, right? I mean, that's what happened with Eli. How about oh man, how about DJ the Rizzler with Kay Adams on the show the other day? She loves him and flirts with him so much you would think they like each other, and Daniel acts oblivious and awkward. Oh man, you guys are so funny. Daniel also gave a nice little chuckle and giggle when Jordan asked him about his his beard today too. So I think he's got some a lot of reporters that he likes interacting with. Joey B thinks I'm above and beyond Nick Wright. Joey, I appreciate you saying that. Nick is extremely talented and a very nice guy too. Extremely talented, very nice guy. Obviously, he has strong opinions, but man, he entertains me. Like, to me, Nick is an entertainer, right? And he's really good at it, and he's extremely talented, and he's been nice to me. I have a relationship with Nick. He's been nice to me. I think he's great. Let's see. Right, Ken. Yes. Basically, end of the day, filler words for sure. But I guess what I was saying was, I don't think with Jones they're also filler words accidentally. I think he does it, on purpose. You're right. Ed Valentine is a great human being. He is the man. Let's see. Lost my place here for a second. Let's get back into the chat. Bill says, I always fall back on better to remain silent and be thoughtful than to speak and remove all doubt. Did you guys hear in my video of Shane Bowen today? I posted on the channel, on the YouTube channel. Late in the interview, I had one more question about Tyler Newman, and there were 2 questions left, and somebody asked a question of Bowen, and I'm filming it, and I'm trying to think about how to formulate my question, and then I'm listening, or is their question done? And Bowen ends his answer way earlier than I expected him to. And I say, Shane, and he looks at me, and I just said out loud, you can hear me. I say, what was I going to ask? I totally blanked. And then I go, oh yeah, Tyler Newman. So I recovered quickly, but that was embarrassing. Let's see. Daniel is smart. He does it on purpose. Yeah. OG thinks Bill Belichick will be coaching Cowboys or Giants. More likely Cowboys, since all the coaches are on 1-year contract. Let's see. Matthew says, right, I saw that. Big Dash has his 9 offensive line on the 53 as well. Interesting. Big Dash says, I'm absolutely a homer, proud of it, but I don't sugarcoat. If I don't like it, you will know. Yeah, that's right. No, that's what I'm saying too. Like, I think a lot of people who are talking about the Giants out there are also Giants fans who are, in the seats or at home on the couch on Sundays and Mondays and Thursdays, like bleeding blue, right, for the team and hoping that they're going to win. So of course you're going to be a homer in that regard. My job requires me to try as best I can to be objective and to try to tell the truth either way, but nothing wrong with being a fan of the team, right? If you're a fan of the team, you're a fan of the team. And Big Dash produces great content. Evan Spitzberg says, I'm a fan of the Giants, but I used to be biased towards my teams, and that's understandable. I've learned to have honest opinions as well. No doubt. Joey B, that I'm putting authentic on before you. Well, I'd actually, Joey B, honestly, I know you and I have talked about that with you too, coming on here. Authentic and the idea, kind of the seed got planted even earlier. So, and really, Authentic was I think he might have been the first, or he was one of the first significant Giants content creators who leaned really hard into supporting what I was doing here. and was promoting it all over his channel. And I just really, really appreciate it. And I thank him for it. And that's part of the reason I want to give back to him and his channel with that. That's right, Big Dash. No Mets, no Nets, no Jets is one of the best names out there. There's no doubt about it. And Tuto praising Big Dash for great Giants content earlier today. Great job as always. Go check out Big Dash's content, guys. Michael Penix Jr., Joe Milton, Bo Nix, and JJ McCarthy become all pros in this league. What will it say about Joe Shane's evaluating players in the draft? Yeah, obviously that wouldn't reflect well. Of course, it appears the Giants dodged a bullet, obviously, by not selecting JJ McCarthy, right? If that was a knee that was going to give out, you never know, right, how things were going to go. But if that knee was going to give out either way, imagine if they had taken him instead of Nabers, right? So for once, at least right now, you have to kind of wipe your brow and say, whew, as much as even if you wanted them to take JJ McCarthy and take that quarterback, you dodge one, at least in the short term. D Kid says, do you have any anecdote off camera or otherwise regarding Daniel Jones that shows his real personality? Anything? Yeah. So D Kid, I wrote a story about, I think it was pre-pandemic. Have to double check on that. But I had a sit-down dinner one-on-one with Daniel Jones in Hoboken. I believe it was, geez, I gotta find it online. Let me find it. So let's see. As I just Google for this, here it is. Dinner with Daniel Jones, one-on-one. A night in Hoboken with the Giants franchise quarterback. I'll pop this in the chat and you guys can read it whenever you like. I don't think you can click through on the link there, but you can copy and paste it. So anyway, at that dinner, I really spent, almost the entire dinner was off the record. I quoted Daniel once from the dinner and we talked about, both each other's lives. One thing I learned about him is that he is extremely detailed about his routine. For example, he tracks his sleep, like he has one, a smartwatch, Apple Watch, whatever it is, where he's very diligent about, getting a certain amount of sleep and being well rested and everything that goes into taking care of his body. Like he is very, very dedicated. I mean, and that there was never a question about that. Everybody always told me he was, all the guys he plays with, all his teammates, his friends, all that. They all say the same thing, that he's committed to that one thing and only that one thing for sure. So, New York, I think, does underappreciate that about Daniel, his work ethic, and just nationally, people obviously expect him to be a better player. But I do think, he's shown his moments, but also like he is a diligent guy. And he does prepare as if he cares the world about it and that it's the most important thing in his life. So in that sit down, what I learned is that there is more to him than meets the eye. I also learned that he will only show you what he wants. And he essentially told me directly that everything he does is in what he feels is the best interest of the team. So in other words, what he was saying was, if you want a certain answer from me and I don't give it to you, it's because I don't think it helps the team. If you say something and I don't like it, or you write something and I don't like it, it's because I don't think it helps the team. It was funny seeing Daniel in real life as opposed to like on the football field where you're always covering him as an NFL player. He was a giant, like walking in the restaurant when we had dinner. It was just so funny because I see him all the time. We interact all the time. And then when he walks into the restaurant, it was noticeable. Like everybody, people are turning and looking, right? So I hope that helps. I mean, I think you'll really enjoy reading that story I put in that link there. It was a fun story to write. It was a fun dinner to have. And, he's well aware of the pressure and he welcomes it. I hope that's a good enough anecdote there. I will say it's not like he lit the room on fire as I was maybe expecting based on the personality that was underneath everything. But again, I think he views me as, even though he does respect me, I think he still viewed me as like, you're the media. I have to portray myself a certain way. I want to portray the Giants a certain way, right? Like he takes it very seriously. It's his job. So, which I respect. So I do think you can see the franchise quarterback qualities, right? Like when somebody says he has all of those intangibles and all that, like that's what they're talking about, all that stuff. Let's see. Let's get back into the chat here. I know you guys got some follow-ups to that story. I will get to them eventually. If you super chat, I'll get to them quickly. If not, though, I do have to keep the order in the queue here. All right. What do we got? We had Evan. We had Dash, Tuto. Mike C says, don't risk Malik Nabers now. He's got years ahead of him. No Mets says, thanks to Dash. Keep up the good content. You're a great part of the community. Super talented and dope vibes. Ken thinks the Giants will go 8-9. Is that 8-9? And is that or Ken? No, just kidding. Just screwing with you. He says they go 8-9 and Jones throws 22 touchdowns and 10 and 12 picks, and they have the 15th pick. If that happens, do they roll with Daniel Jones? Tough spot in the draft, or go free agency and release him? 8-9 with 22 and 12. I think Daniel's your quarterback next year. I mean, just based on you saying that. Barb thinks Daniel Jones is going to have a good year. No doubt. Ed in Big Blue View. Ed Valentine is the man. Joey B says, Pat is the livest of the live. So much content, not only during the season, but all year long. I've been rocking with Pat since he called the Tony trade, and that when I got on Twitter. No doubt. Always calling it. And don't forget, one of the most entertaining things I've ever worked on, Deontay Baker scandal, and he and Quentin Dunbar and that whole mess down in Florida during the pandemic. What a story that was. If you were following then, I hope you were, because I was at the forefront of the coverage of all of that. And Baker ended up getting released basically based on all the information I was reporting and finding out. Gabe says, who on the Giants beat is making the trip? Well, I don't want to, out anybody or, tell you guys, oh, this outlet's not sending people, this outlet is, because that's, that's kind of not something you do really, because everyone still has a job to do. But I will say it's not as large a contingent as it usually is, Gabe. So that's why Houston is going to be a big time Talkin Ball live chat, because it already is. I mean, I'm going to bring you guys unique insight either way, no matter who's there. But I just think there's not going to be anybody with the perspective I have there giving you that information that quickly. There just isn't in that moment, because, there's not going to be somebody there going live on camera with you. That's all I'm saying. 5-12 or 6-11 on the season, says OG. Gary says, hi, Pat. Do you think CB2 is on the roster? I think there's a good chance that early in the season or middle of the season that someone not on the roster is playing CB2. But I think early on, it's going to be Nick McLeod. Woodford is solid, no doubt. Great choice, says Cecil. Dadan says, use Elijah Craig. Woodford is a good one too. Elijah Craig is also very good. I think I finished the bottle of Elijah Craig I had. Let's see. Barbara says OBJ had a bad attitude. Diva. Odell was fun, man. I miss him. No Met says nothing to lose being a homer. Screw what other people think. Yeah. OBJ had a good QB, though, says Brandon. Well, he did early on, but then Eli fell off. And then, of course, Odell got in a lot of trouble for saying that out loud to Lil Wayne. I just hope Neighbors doesn't blame Daniel Jones' poor QB play this year. Right. Funny you just say that with us talking about Odell. Let's see. Yes, most people I think are overreacting to the Kay Adams interview. I agree. Yeah, Chase Claypool, did they release him injured? Did they waive him injured? I think he got hurt, right? D Kid says special teams coaches are slightly off, don't you think, Pat? Like the guy who shows up to the party uninvited and tries to get everyone to do karaoke. That's funny. No, it was funny. I had somebody remark to me the other day that it's interesting when they see, let's say, like a coach. I had a position coach who's like a career coach just at the one position, and they never move up, they never move down. That's just their thing, and that's what they do. That is just a fascinating deal. Special teams guys, I think of that as well. It's interesting. Special teams guys are people, they know a lot of football, and they also know a lot of football that no one else knows, right? Because they're working on a side of the ball that all these OCs and DCs just, don't pay much attention to, So they end up knowing a lot that I guess is less useful in a sit down conversation at the bar, Matthew Kelly, thank you for the $3 super chat. He says, who is on the hot seat more, Daboll or Sirianni? I think those guys are in similar situations. It's different in the sense that Daboll's team is not expected to be good, but needs to be good. Sirianni's team is expected to be good and was in the Super Bowl 2 years ago, but was a complete mess last year after the hot start. I think they're both facing a lot of pressure. I think that Sirianni has a lot more talent to work with, but they're both in positions where they easily could have gotten fired last year. And so they're both on borrowed time. I think that was the time to fire Sirianni if they were going to do it. The fact that they didn't, to me, reflects that they are, kicking my camera there. To me, that reflects that they are looking at a way to try to kind of salvage this and see if he can be that CEO coach. Now, it's possible that Belichick, is the guy in waiting there, as we talked about earlier. Like there's multiple places, Jets, Cowboys, Eagles, Giants, places where he could possibly be a fit. I would say I think Daboll's under more pressure, but it's kind of 6 and 1, half a dozen of another. Like I said, both could have been fired last year. Both are under pressure. I do think Sirianni has a better chance of having a good enough season for people to say, oh, they're kind of like back on track or closer to back on track. But I do think the Eagles also have a lot of unanswered questions, like I said earlier, too. Like, I don't think it's a given that they're going to be what they were 2 years ago. Let's see. Barbara says, I guess JJ McCarthy tore his ACL on the MetLife turf. Some people are nuts on these things that aren't true. Yeah. Also, like yes, players don't like turf, but also, like, are you going to blame turf for everything and not actually look at the way a team practices when it comes to how guys get hurt or get soft tissue injuries? Like, you have to examine the whole thing, right? No, Matt says Nick Wright is doing what he has to do. He's in that position. He has to annoy some viewers. Now, I like Nick. I think he's funny. I think he's entertaining. Like, I think if Nick is pissing you off, you're kind of missing the point of like his act. Cause I think that he's good at getting people riled up, but I don't think he's overly serious. Like, I don't think he takes himself seriously. And I mean that in a good way. I'm saying, like, somebody who's extremely talented in a big spot and is loud and opinionated and funny and but doesn't think of themselves as any big time deal or whatever. They just do it, and he like has fun with it. Let's see. Nick Wright started watching football in 2018 when Mahomes became the starter. You guys are so funny. He would enjoy this. He would enjoy this chat. Let's see. His takes on LeBron versus Jordan make me sick. Yeah, again, but he's he's just playing, at this point, he's just all in because he knows it's driving people crazy, Why James is the GOAT. Yeah, I mean, listen, both amazing players, but it's so funny. I'm a Jordan guy, but of course you have to respect LeBron as well. A Homer fan is one thing, but lying and being delusional is another thing, Pat. Oh, no doubt, OG. And there are people who go overboard in the media in that regard of like selling the company line or the team's line for sure. Shout out to Authentic. Shout out to the beard, no doubt. Ken Peters says, why is the Talkin Ball banner green and not blue on this podcast? Good question, Ken. Well, that was initially part of my first graphic. It was, just the football field with Talkin Ball in front of it. And so that's why it looks like that. But Ken, I actually have recently had a new Talkin Ball graphic made, and it's going to be a new brand. It's going to be rebranded all over my content. I'm going to be able to repurpose it in a lot of different colors for different podcasts, different guests, different teams we're talking about. But it will have some blue in it, and I think you guys will like it. I'm excited about it. I like it a lot. So I'm looking forward to unveiling that probably for the start of the regular season, but maybe we'll get it going, either at some point Jets week or the week in between Jets week and week 1. But we are getting to some sort of blue. They're not necessarily like Giants colors, Ken, because I am doing a lot of Giants and I am with the Giants every day. And so that's primarily my expertise and what I'm around. But, we talk the whole league here. We have guests on talking about the whole NFL, covering the whole NFL for the Daily News as an NFL columnist as well. And so, it's something where we focus on New York and the Giants, but also want to bring a full NFL experience to you guys here. But perceptive of you, and the blue is coming. Mike Ross says, I thought Bill Belichick hates the Giants. Every time I hear him bring up New York, he seems to throw some sort of shade to Mara and the team. He does throw some barbs for sure, Mike. I honestly don't think it's going to end up being Bill here, especially because I think if he does get a job, it's going to be a place where, I think it's going to be a place where he needs a team ready to win, like armed to win. I mean, he's not rebuilding for 5 years to turn the team around. Like, that's not what he's interested in, right? Like, why would he be? Why should he be? That can't be what he's interested in. So, I agree. I don't think he ends up here. He does have a lot of good feelings for the Giants organization, though, in his heart, going back to the Wellington Mara days, of course. Vince G says he would sit Malik Nabers. Big Dash agrees. Authentic does fantastic work. Best produced show in the Giants community. Also keeps it 100% authentic. Yes, his production quality is amazing. And what he does with his show, producing all those clips and his videos and his takes, so good. Yes, authentic is dope. Yeah, Joey B, I know you're kidding, man. Bearded Daniel Jones is built different, says Vince. Agreed. Joe Milton was awful tonight. He looks slow to process and release. Slow to process is what people tell you, Barbara, too, going back to his Tennessee days. You can see it on the tape. Very true, Pat, about dodging McCarthy and the meniscus. Yeah, for sure. Let's see. Vince G says, did you have to pick up the check with Daniel Jones? So if I remember correctly, I believe it was a split the bill situation. I believe it was one of those deals where it was, insisting upon picking it up and where both sides agreed that we would each pay for our own meal. So that was the end of that. Let's see. So yes, no, Daniel Jones did not let me buy him dinner. We were in, I have to look at the story again. I do not remember the name of the restaurant we were in. Let me see. It was a steakhouse. No, it was not Arthur's. It was not Arthur's. You're doing a great job covering the Giants, Pat. Thank you, Barbara. She says, I'm cautiously optimistic on the season. Glad to hear that. Joey B thinks 11-6. No Met says, that sounds familiar. Seems so familiar. Joey B, do you have multiple YouTube accounts? Yeah, he's running around changing, logging in and logging out, putting those predictions all over the place. That's so funny. OG says the reason I made the Homer comment is because most of them lie to the fans about what's happening and what we see with our own eyes. You can't convince me Daniel Jones and the Giants are good. Yeah, OG. No, I would say that's the only problem I ever have sometimes is it's weird. Sometimes you report something that you see at practice and then you see an aggregator account like misappropriating your information or just regurgitating it and then drawing conclusions from nothing that they have no idea about, right? Like those are misleading and they gum up the conversation and the dialogue, So I'll agree with that. Joey B says if it's not 11-6, it's 5-12. Hey, well, at least he's committed to one. Vince G says, I always thought Danny was a bit meek. The beard is giving him swagger. Oh, without a doubt. Keep the beard. If you don't keep the beard, it's over. Come on. Let's see. Big Dash thinks Sirianni is on the hot seat more. Intel thinks Daniel will have a tough year. I think it comes down to the protection. If they can't protect him, non-starter again. Daniel's not going to overcome bad pass protection consistently. It's just not going to happen. Most quarterbacks can't. There's only a handful that can get anywhere close. Daniel Jones needs to step up to learn, read defenses better, make quicker decisions. I feel like he has a Troy Aikman type talent. He just needs to step up. No longer Saquon on the team. It has to be number 8's team. That is a very good point, Oliver. Thank you. Let's see. Michael says, yeah, you remember the DeAndre Baker scandal. Yeah, well, that was wild. Michael says, just getting on. What's up, Pat? Did anyone ask how Nabers looked in practice today? Heard he was full go. Thanks. Michael, he was full go. He did take an end around and sprinted. Like it was the one time I saw him really, really open up and then started grabbing the back of his kind of like right thigh. He did, though, finish practice, ran more routes after that, jogged more routes, etc. Had one catch on a stop route. So it wasn't like he left practice or anything, but even just that grab, it could have been a cramp other than, instead of like just tightness or whatever. I just didn't like seeing it. It just like in the back of my mind just said to me, why risk this, But that said, he did practice full. He did finish practice. So that was good to see for sure. He would have surprised you with how good he looked other than the grabbing of the leg there. OG says, Daniel Jones is going to have a good year. How many games will he be healthy for since history shows otherwise? Again, O-line. Noel says, Pat, did you sense there was any friction between most of the defensive players and Wink last season? Do you get a sense that the players like Bowen more? No, that is not the case. That was not the case. There were definitely handful of players last year that, probably felt like they should have been playing more, utilized more. It was funny, like as well as Wink Martindale used Isaiah Simmons last year, and I thought unlocked him in a lot of ways. When Simmons made that play in Washington, it was like him and a lot of the players were like, this is why he should be playing more. It was almost like it was a talking point among the players. So you're always going to get that with players for sure. And Martindale and McKinney obviously had that kind of back and forth that 1 week. But if you noticed, that was hard coaching that resulted in McKinney playing the best ball of his career for the second half of the season. And no, I can tell you for a fact, like even Isaiah Simmons at the end of the year, he was raving to me about Wink. We're talking about like, was he going to come back? And he was saying about how he loved playing for Martindale, how he had never been kind of freed, to be used in the ways that he wanted to and all those things. So no, there wasn't like a players versus coach deal on the defense. As far as liking Bowen more, I think with Bowen right now, they're listening to him. He's their coach and it's wait and see. Like, I think they're all eager for the new system to work. And I think getting results helps that, right? So giving up only 3 points in a preseason game, even if it's your backups against the Lions backups, like you can build on that, and that's what I did ask Bowen about that, and that is an encouraging part. The fact that they played physical, the fact that they did give up some drives, but then they withstood it in the red zone and didn't let them in the end zone. So, you did see a defense fighting, not quitting, and persisting in that preseason game. And early on, best case scenario there, right? Like that's what you want to see. No Met says Daboll gets along with his quarterback. Oh, you mean like throwing tablets at his feet and screaming in his face in Tennessee, and then throwing tablets in Seattle at Daniel storming by him after that interception against Seattle? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, listen, it's been up and down. It's gotta be consistently good. Big Dash says that old fashioned is doing the job. Appreciate you, old Big Dash. Thank you. Let's see. Sirianni is under a lot more pressure, says Evan. Interesting you think that. I mean, listen, they're both under a ton of pressure. Michael Jordan was a killer and LeBum is a whiner, but both incredible all-time best of best players, Let's see. Why don't they all dome stadiums in cold regions or make it like the Cowboys? I can't believe I said that. Screw the Cowboys. Joey B says, I would like a dome in East Rutherford. That windy ass cold stadium sucks in Dallas. In East Rutherford, I mean, in MetLife. Yeah, a dome would be nice. Imagine how expensive that would be, though, man. The Jets and Giants splitting that. Can't imagine that's coming. Chowski says, one of my friends is a Vikings fan, and we both are just hoping for a good game in week 1, to be honest. I really do see the Giants winning it. Too much is on the line. Listen, one good thing about it, you don't wish harm on anybody, but the Vikings have had a summer from hell. I mean, they've really been struggling with injuries. So obviously they still have their big time players in the mix, especially on offense, Aaron Jones, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, but Sam Darnold being the quarterback. So can the Giants do something with that? What can Brian Flores do on defense? Losing some corners, obviously, be interesting to see. Mr. Godfrey says, what are your thoughts about the recent Brandon Jacobs interview? Which one was that? I know he's done a couple recently. He was also on Talkin Ball with Pat Leonard. Grateful to Brandon for coming on the show leading up to the softball game in the spring. Ken says, is Art Stapleton the most tenured reporter on the beat? I believe it's Paul Schwartz from the New York Post at the moment. I would think it would be Paul and then Art, I believe. Let's see. Smoke is on the way. It's been nothing but smoke his whole career. I think, who are you talking about there? Daniel Jones? Iconic says, Pat, what is the thing about the team nobody is talking about that you have noticed? Iconic, I think it's the run defense is something that I keep watching. I'm concerned about it. Listen, in the preseason opener, it was good, right? The backups who played in that game, their run defense was good. I want to see them stop the run against Houston. I would say overall, the thing no one's talking about is that their defense is giving up big plays in camp. Their secondary obviously being questionable. There's a lot riding on just that front pass rush. But I think the run defense and the defense as a whole, I think the defense is going to regress. And I think the run defense might be an issue. So the thing no one's talking about is how is the run defense going to fare? Because let's face it, the Giants are a team right now that likely are going to be trailing in a lot of these games at certain points. And when you're trailing, teams can run the ball on you. And you need to be able to stop the run to get them out of it, right? So that worries me, and that's what I want to see. Like I said, they stopped the run in the first preseason game, so that was great to see. But I want to see it from the starters in this game, maybe where things are being schemed up a little bit differently against a really good football team and their starters. And I want to see it when the games count as well. Joey B says, hey, Pat, are you and Skinny Dave's getting along better this season? He's warming up to you finally, I think. I have no problem with Brian Daboll. I just cover him and what I know, what I see, what I hear from him, from people in the organization, from people around the organization. But no problem with Brian Daboll, man. I hope this team turns it around and gets better and wins games. So I'm doing a Talkin Ball live from the Super Bowl in New Orleans after a Giants Super Bowl game, right? I want the Giants to play in the Super Bowl. I want them to go win a Super Bowl so I can write a book about the Giants winning the Super Bowl and everything I saw throughout the season and how wrong I was that they were only going to win 4 games or whatever. That's what I want. How do you see Daniel Jones now? Is he improved and look poised to take over? Or is he just saying and doing all the right things to do it? He looks determined. He's showing fire. He's made some good throws in recent days, Joey. So he's done everything he's been asked of at this point. it couldn't have been. I mean, there were rocky days, rocky times, but it's been really good recently. So at this point, you have to be encouraged and then see where it goes from there. Chowski says, who is your favorite player on the team, Pat? I've really taken a liking to Dante Turbo Miller. Had a good camp, though obviously was banged up recently. We'll see how much he does. He did practice today a little bit. I like Allen Robinson a lot. I like what he's done. I feel like he's a sleeper. Let's see. Excuse me. I like Chris Manhertz a lot. Chris Manhertz brings a lot of perspective. He's a smart veteran, savvy guy. I like him. I like Andrew Thomas a lot. Straight shooter, great representative of the Giants, great player. There's a lot of guys on the team I like a lot. Banks is a blast to talk to. There's a lot of good guys on the team. Bobby is a great guy, Bobby Okereke, and on and on. I like dealing with a lot of the Giants. How has Allen Robinson looked? Is he going to get cut or dealt to a team like the Bills? I'd like to keep him, but going to be tough to fit him on the 53. Habitual, I think he should be on the team. There are teams that can use him if he's not. Detroit Lions being one of them, like you said, Bills. I do think he should be on the team. I think he can help them. I think he's versatile. He's smart. They are a very young team, so it'd be good to have a veteran like him in the locker room. So at the moment, I put him on my 53, but like you said, given the numbers, it could be tough. There is a chance that 4 undrafted free agents make the 53, Pat. Crazy if you think about it. Yeah, this is really Joe Shane's team now, through and through. Draft picks, undrafted free agents. Guys, as you're alluding to, Elijah Chapman will be on the team, unless, barring some crazy change. He's looked good, Joey B. I see you down there. Kind of piggybacking on that, he's looked good. They like what they see in him. Turbo, I guess, with the hamstring, it's going to be tough, especially Daboll kind of casting aspersions on him not necessarily being a complete player, I guess. But let's see. Who are the other UDFAs you're talking about there? Someone else is escaping me. So we have Chapman. You also like Jake Kubas, right? I would put him on the team. Then you have, what other rookies do we have? Oh, I guess you're putting Alex Johnson on the team. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, that one might be tough. But yeah, no, for sure, a youth movement in certain areas of this roster, definitely. OG says, Pat Leonard, O-line, Big Blue, Authentic, and The Beard are the best Giants podcasts, in my opinion. And Big Dash knows. Most of the rest are capping about their information for real. OG, bringing it. Iconic says, Pat, I will be in Houston to support the team. Iconic, if you pass me or see me, let me know. Shout it out. D-Kid says, I'm thinking we're going to be active on cutdown day, Pat. We sit in the 6th spot on the waiver list. Yeah, for sure. I think you saw here, too, this day where they, in a span of 24 hours, trade Jordan Phillips, who wasn't going to make the team, cut Jalen Mills, signed 2 safeties, put Elijah Riley, safety, on IR, signed Josh Kelly, running back. Like, I think you're going to see a lot of change-ups back and forth from the Giants as they scramble to try to put a really good product on the field for key games early on. Joey B says, okay, week 1, you show up as a fan for the 100th year season. As a fan, whose jersey do you have on? Ooh, that's a great question. I think the first name that popped into my head was Harry Carson. That was the first name that popped into my head. I don't know if that's the right answer, but that's my answer. Michael says, any update on Tyler Nubin? How has he looked since coming back from injury? He's looked good. He had a pick in a practice on Tuesday. He also dropped one in the back of the end zone. He's played physical so far from what we've seen. He still needs to play more football. I think that's what they want to see is him stay on the field, continue to play, continue to show it. and continue to mesh with these guys. Shane Bowen made an interesting comment at his press conference. He said that our best 11 might not actually end up at first being the best 11 players. It needs to be the best 11 group. And when he said that, one thing I thought he was saying there, now, I'm not putting words in his mouth, but I thought about right away, okay, what positions is he talking about? He could be talking about, listen, I know Tyler Nubin eventually is going to be a better player on the field than Dane Belton, but right now Dane is smart enough and connected enough to the rest of the defense that he belongs on the field to start. Like, that could be an example of what he means. D-Kit says, if I'm Brian Flores, I am going to pressure and hit Jones from the jump, bracket Neighbors, and let the other guys beat us. The pressure, definitely. And even trying to get there with just 5, a front 4 and a kind of creative pressure with a 5th. And if they're getting to Daniel Jones early like that, look out. Mr. Godfrey says that Brandon Jacobs was on a podcast saying he did a substance when he was in high school, and he scored 4 touchdowns and 334 yards. Did you ever notice him on under the influence? It's a joke. Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, I did see that, Mr. Godfrey. Actually, it was funny when I saw him say that in that interview and it went viral. My first thought was, hey, Brandon, how come when I was interviewing you, you didn't tell me about the time you did coke at a high school game? But no, that was interesting for sure. Let's see. Daniel Jones looked good in other training camps before, OG says. I remember when the Giants went 4-0 in preseason when we had Joe Judge, and they sucked during the season. Only real games count. Ken Peters says, I think we should have signed Danielle Hunter for less and not traded for Burns, and used our traded number 2 pick on one of the 2 CBs they missed on. We will see. Hunter more sacks than Burns last 3 years. Ken, don't totally disagree with you. They were interested in poking around on Danielle Hunter at first. That did surprise me as well. The rationale definitely ended up being connected to Burns' age and ability to not only produce, but maybe continue to ascend, it appears. Though it was expensive from a contract standpoint. Even it wasn't as expensive draft pick wise as previous offers had been for Burns in the past, but giving up that 2, to your point, still cost you that corner there, which could be costly, especially in the short term. So I don't disagree with you. I think that was a scenario that might have ended up working out better for them in the short term. So the question is, for like a guy like Joe Shane, was it more worth it to him for the long term? And does he get the patience to live out whether or not that most benefits the organization? D-Kid says, I only wear one jersey, 56. Joey B says, I get tired of wearing jerseys and losing, guys, that I got my own jersey made with my name and number. I ain't getting traded. Yeah, what was that? I had a friend years ago. He asked me like what jersey to get because he was tired of that. And I told him Landon Collins, like when at the time he was like one of the 2 most solid guys on the team. And within 2 years, Landon wasn't on the team anymore, contract, et cetera, So that's funny. That reminded me of that. William Cologne says, why do you think the Giants are going to be bad this year? After everything that happened last year, we still won 6 games with 3 QBs and injuries everywhere. So are you putting it all on Daniel Jones and the cornerbacks? No, I felt like games were mismanaged last year by the head coach. I think a lot is new this year. It's going to be very difficult. It's kind of like a first-year staff, right? Like most of the staff or majority of the staff is new, and a lot of key players are new, right? O-line, D coordinator, special teams coordinator. Now, they could be upgrades too. There's no doubt about it, but the game management was bad. It sounds like the same people are involved in that process. The offense was one of the worst offenses in the league. They didn't score at all. And really they treaded water because their defense was tied for the league lead in turnovers forced and kept them in some of those games. So that's my opinion there, William. But obviously, hopefully I'm wrong. I prefer to cover good football. D-Kid says, I guess we will have to see what happens with Evan Neal as the season unwinds, but I'm of the mind that this may end up working out. I'm of the mind this may end up working out in the long run. Hopefully it does. Fanatics says, Joey B says, Fanatics needs to take down the Galladay jerseys off the Giants site, man. You can get one for like $20, but if you call now, you'll get another color free. Michael says, dream scenario, Giants have a good year. Daniel plays great to live out contract, but they take his replacement and let him develop. Yes, for sure. Ken Peters says, I'm so old. My first jersey was John Mendenhall, 64. Awesome. Nice throwback. Love it. All right. We are sponsored here, Talking Ball with Pat Leonard, by Boom Chaga Mushroom Super Drink, a natural extract loaded with anti-inflammatory, immune-boosting antioxidants and heart-healthy compounds. You can easily pour this natural liquid supplement into any of your favorite drinks. I put mine in my coffee every morning and immediately feel the difference. I personally have felt a post-workout like energy boost with Boom. Chaga also has the ability to lower cholesterol, reduce inflammation, and improve immune and heart health with beta-glucans and antioxidants. Go to boomchaga.com today to place your first order. And if you use discount code TalkinBall25 or access it through the QR code on your screen, you'll get 25% off your first subscribe and save order. Right now, that means a month's supply costs you only $30. Start feeling the difference today at boomchaga.com. Boomchaga.com, subscribe and save. Talkin Ball 25 code, $30. So that's that discount. And then you can cancel the subscription. You don't have to say subscribed. Also, we are brought to you here by Bet Online and by Estate 98 Coffee, an all-natural specialty coffee with no sugar that is convenient for on-the-go professionals and parents. Takes me less than 10 seconds to make a delicious Estate 98 iced coffee and only a minute more to make a hot coffee or a latte from this natural concentrate. Go to estate98.com/Talkin Ball to get a special buy one, get one free deal. Estate98.com/Talkin Ball. D Kit says, can you get an Aziz interview, Pat? His story is interesting at this point, I think. Somebody did talk to him today, but I will request him soon and talk to him. Love Aziz. Always enjoy having conversations with him. Hopefully he sticks. Maybe talk to him after the game in Houston. Joey B says, Pat, thanks and good night, bro. I had a Mendenhall jersey too, says D Kit. FanFest weekend. I'll be in town Friday to Sunday. Let's get that cigar. You got it, Joey B. That sounds good. Elias says, honestly, I'm of the mind that with one bad Banks injury, the season goes to hell. No team can win with a bad pass defense. What do you think? Yes, I think that would be disastrous. Banks getting hurt. I also think it's just going to be challenging for him to be the number one they want him to be in general. Habitual says Nabers and Banks seem like they have a good relationship. Leak looks like he is starting to open up and have fun. I think he's starting to like being a Giant. Yes, ultimate competitor, though. So they're going to need to win for him to have a smile on his face. And listen, that's really how you want it in the end, is for guys to want to win so bad it hurts when they don't. Guys, thank you so much for being here for Talkin Ball Live. So we're going to be live again Saturday after the Texans-Giants game. So I will cover the game. I'll go to the locker room, talk to the guys, come back upstairs, and go live with you on YouTube from NRG Stadium in Houston. That's going to be a huge Talkin Ball Live because we're going to see the starters play a lot. We're going to see Daniel Jones on the field, maybe Malik Nabers, even though that could be risky. And we're going to see a lot of what these Giants are going to look like in a full dress rehearsal, really as close as we're going to get in game action, most likely for week one. So remember, NewYorkDailyNews.com/sports, Talkin Ball with Pat Leonard podcast on Believe Network, Talkin Ball Live Mondays and Thursdays, 9 p.m. and after every Giants game, including this Saturday in Houston. Kickoff is 1 p.m. Eastern, I believe, 12 o'clock Houston time. D-Kit says, awesome. Yep, game is 1 p.m. Eastern. You rock, Pat. Thanks again, says Dave Z. Bet Online, Estate 98 Coffee, Boom Chaga. Thank you guys for being here. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, thanks for checking in as well. Give me one last like on the way out if you haven't yet. And we will talk to you next time on Talkin Ball Live. By the way, stay tuned. We have the Benny Fowler podcast on the channel. And as you're watching this, the next video, if you're watching this on Friday afternoon, Friday night, or Saturday, your next video should be me and Allen Robinson II, Giants wide receiver, talking about his past, his future, his present, the Giants, Nabers, the quarterbacks, how he runs routes so well, and everything in between, his basketball career. So much fun to talk to him. He's a foodie, a lot to learn about Allen Robinson II. So if you're done watching this and you're enjoying this content, go over and watch my interview with Allen Robinson II. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and take care. I'll see you next time on Talkin Ball Live with Pat Leonard.